path of least resistance. All laws of physics have an order of priority. The law with the absolute highest level of priority above all other laws is the law of one. Nature abhors a vacuum. That's basically what it means. It can also mean like the law of assimilation, the law of the void, the law of vacuums, the law of one. So what does this mean? It means all other natural laws can be broken in order to fulfill the highest priority law. And the law of one, it has the highest priority. This means like Gandalf, Merlin, fireballs from hands, lightning from fingers might actually be freaking possible. It means superpowers exist if this is done right. And it also means unlimited sources of power. John Keely was doing this, tapping into this. It's kind of like the Three Musketeers. Even though there's you ever notice there's actually 4 musketeers and none of them use a musket? They're really like the 4 fencers, right? The law of one is kind of like what they say in Three Musketeers. There is only one. We are all for one and one for all. We're both at once on a fractally infinite scale. 0 doesn't exist in nature. 2 doesn't exist in nature. Only 1. The concept of counting is a human contrivance done for convenience. Humans see themselves as separate from nature. We see ourselves as unique, but really we're not. We can never split from nature because everything is one infinite being. True emptiness cannot exist. We're one. I equate it to like the ocean. It's like the ether. It's that like a etheric ocean, not a water ocean. You know what I mean? And it's everywhere. There is no vacuum in space. There's no vacuums. It'll always go to close the vacuum. That's the law of one. Typically, people think of a vacuum, and yeah, exactly, with space, people think of the vacuum as like a vacuum chamber or the vacuum of space or a vacuum tube. A vacuum chamber and tube are air, and the vacuum of space are all air vacuums. They have an absence of air. That is not a truly empty vacuum because the ether is still there. It's kind of like the electromagnetic spectrum. If you can send signals through space, as they say space is, then it's not a vacuum, period. Their version of a vacuum is an air vacuum. It's not a full void. And another example someone might think of is a black hole. A black hole is a absence of light. It's a vacuum of light. It's not a full vacuum. There's still ether. There's still other signals that can go through a black hole. So it's not a complete vacuum. So there is no vacuums. There is no emptiness. Total emptiness. There's degrees to it. When you hit a certain threshold, you can make a vacuum in various along the electromagnetic spectrum, or with pressure. I don't know. There's tons of different ways to do it into it. So how's a vacuum created? A vacuum is created when there's a large difference in pressure. There are many different types of pressure, and they all have different properties. Some like how air can be compressed. So you got air pressure that way, but then water cannot be compressed. So then you can harness that energy that it can't be compressed. I find it kind of convenient just to put it into like the five alchemical elements. Like air is air compressors, vacuum chambers, tubes. Water is like hydraulics, sonoluminescence, which is an absence of water inside of a water tank. Water, then we got fire, which is like cold and hot temperatures. Then earth, which is like magnetic, and electricity, electrostatic. Why do all of electricity has to be grounded? What's the ground? The ground's the earth. Earth is the element of electricity. It's the most powerful element, because really that's like, think about seeds, and like magnets are really like they're lodestones from the earth. And then there's ether. Ether covers a wide range of stuff. Like think of the electromagnetic spectrum. That's that's just a part of the ether. Like they're basically the same thing. So you can have a difference in color. You can have a pressure difference and all kinds of stuff. So like even like vibes, like when you got like a certain vibe, and like that, this can break down not only vibes, but it can get into your beliefs. Like the energy of your belief, the pressure of the belief. And then there's another element I threw in there. There's probably even more, but this is just the 6 that I go by, and that's inertia. And that you can get a pressure difference in inertia through like heavy and light weight, or like viscosity and friction, viscousness. Now I'm gonna go through the examples. Okay, the first example would be like a thunderstorm. Thunderstorms are a result of low and high air pressure and low and high electrostatic pressure. The pressure builds until it creates a vacuum between the cloud, the air, like an air element, and the ground, earth element. When the vacuum is created, it immediately implodes or collapses along the path of least resistance, which in this case means lightning and thunder. Thunder is the result of the implosion of a vacuum of air, and the lightning is the result of the implosion of the vacuum of electrostatic energy. You can see how the lightning branches out towards the path of least resistance, like if you ever watch a lightning bolt go out. This one is the first example of like an ether pressure, other than intent. I guess intent's kind of an ether pressure too. But the casino game craps. The dice follow the path of least resistance to close in an etheric vacuum created by the collective etheric pressure of the players at the table. If the vibes of the players at the table are high, happy, and fun, and in good spirits, the path of least resistance to close the etheric vacuum is that the dice will continue to roll favorably. If the vibes of the players at the table are low, sad, angry, and in poor spirits, the path of least resistance to close the etheric vacuum is that the dice will not roll favorably. In other words, the players are not cheering. When you see people cheering when they're playing craps, it's in a lot of movies. When you see people cheering, it's the players are not cheering because the dice is rolling favorably. The dice is rolling favorably because of the people cheering. That's what I'm trying to say. And I bet if you could clean up if you actually like implemented this at a casino. But they might have like rigged dice and whatnot, so I don't know. Like if you ever play craps, try it. Like if you're just by yourself, like you're not with like friends and stuff, you can't really do the good spirit part of it. But if you're by yourself and you don't really care about other people's feelings, you could go to a table that looks like like everyone there is miserable. Go to that table, play, and then start playing the no pass line. The no pass line is considered taboo and like unlucky. You're not supposed to play it really, and it makes everyone mad. So if you play the no pass line, it's going to make everyone mad, and it's going to make them even more miserable. And then when they roll, they're going to crap out more, and you get paid when you play the no pass line when other players crap out. So it's like you're harnessing the low energy. Or you can go with friends and just start having fun, like cracking jokes with the dealers, like making friends. The dice will follow the path of least resistance to close the vacuum created by the build up or build down of etheric vibrational pressure. It closes the vacuum after each roll, but then the pressure builds up even more so until the next dice roll. And it continues to build each time until a lull in vibrational pressure occurs between rolls and there's no etheric vacuum. There's like no vibrational, like vibes. That's the kind of ether I'm talking about there. Next example is I'm going to start getting into the etheric belief pressure. Example would be the placebo effect. The placebo effect is the path of least resistance during the collapsing of an etheric belief pressure vacuum. A patient will go into an experimental drug study expecting to receive the experimental drug. If the patient sufficiently believes that they will be cured by taking the experimental drug, but it turns out they only took a placebo, an etheric belief pressure vacuum is created. The vacuum closes along the path of least resistance, which in this particular case is that the patient simply cures himself. The body's normal physical laws no longer mattered because it was the law of one. The nature abhors a vacuum. It has to close. It'll break out all the other laws. So that means you just cure yourself with the placebo because that's the path of least resistance. All right, next example. All right, next example is hypnotism. Hypnotism works very similarly to the placebo effect, but the hypnotist like pseudo-consciously sets conditions which amplify the hypnotist's etheric belief pressure. When the conditions set by the hypnotist get triggered, it elicits something hypnotists call a conditioned response, and the person enters a hypnotized state, loosely defined as relaxed and like in trance. In other words, when the etheric belief pressure reaches a threshold, a vacuum forms, and it must close along the path of least resistance, which in this particular case means the other person becomes hypnotized. Putting someone into a hypnotic state usually has a few very simple conditions that usually involve some form of consent from the victim. or like the patient, whatever. Like even the most famous like example of hypnotism, it's follow the pocket watch as it goes back and forth. That's consent, and that's like a condition that you have to get someone to follow a pocket watch, go back and forth. That's a condition. It's a belief condition. It's building etheric belief pressure. The victim is giving consent simply by following your directions, the hypnotist's directions. And like if you watch any rapid hypnotist videos, how they do that, almost everyone has a slightly different thing that they do, but it's all based on consent. Like one guy would be like, have you ever been hypnotized? Like he'll shake their hand. He's like, so basically he's giving you what his conditions are to hypnotize you. He has to shake your hand, ask you if you've ever been hypnotized and if you want to be hypnotized. And then he says, all right, put your feet together real quick. And then the person moves and puts their feet together. And then he's like, and then he says what the induction. He's like, okay, he puts his hand on their head and goes, okay, sleep. And the guy goes to sleep. Well, that was like 4 conditions that he had to meet, right? Those are all building belief pressure until it reached the threshold. And then the path of least resistance to close the vacuum when it reaches that threshold is that the person just goes to sleep. And the person gave consent to it. So they're a part of it now. And like I saw another guy, he walks up to someone and he says, you ever been hypnotized? Do you want to be hypnotized? And then the guy would say, yeah, sure. And then he puts up his hand in the air and he just says, look at the lines of your hand. Focus on one line of your hand. Now focus at the middle of it. And then he slowly brings the hand closer to the guy's face and then closes his eyes, puts his hand over his face and he says, sleep. And the guy falls asleep because that was his conditions. Like the conditions can be literally anything. And the thing is, the reason why I say pseudo consciously they're setting these conditions is that I don't think they realize the extent to which these conditions can be used, but they're still actually setting it. Like they had to come up with that little routine that they did, so they are setting it, but it's not like conscious. It's like pseudo conscious. This gets into what I call conditional belief magic. Here's where it gets into the magic stuff. What hypnotists do with their conditions can be massively expanded upon. Setting conditions simply amplifies the etheric belief pressure. This can apply to literally like anything, including Merlin, Palpatine, Gandalf type like fireballs, lightning, conjuring. The difficult part is getting yourself to 100% believe the conditions you set amplify the etheric belief pressure enough to create a sufficient vacuum to allow for the crazy magical stuff to occur. When you build up etheric belief pressure, you are building your belief in yourself, basically. And because we are all one, and we're all one infinite being, you're basically building your belief in the law of one. The vacuum always collapses by following the path of least resistance, consciously set. And so you can consciously set the path of least resistance for this when you do etheric belief like magic. Conditions are a way to prove your conviction, kind of like a way to prove worthiness. Like if a kid asks his parents to shoot a handgun, most parents wouldn't simply give the child a fully loaded handgun, right? They'd probably say, no, you'll shoot your eye out, kid. If the kid asks the parents to shoot a handgun while under their supervision after taking a basic firearms safety class and while at a shooting range, the parents are far more likely to say yes, right? Those are 3 conditions. The kid was using conditions to get permission for something that he's not ready for, right? But keep in mind, this is not every case. It's not a worthiness thing. It's a belief thing for this particular type of magic. This is not every case. Maybe the parents trust the child so much they just give him the handgun. Maybe the kid is just like, he's an old soul, something like that. Maybe the parents were negligent and just didn't care. Maybe an intruder was in the house and was attacking the child's parents. Maybe the kid's an orphan. He doesn't have parents. He doesn't, you know what I mean? In other words, what I'm trying to say is that, the stronger your belief system, the easier it is to build etheric belief pressure. To determine the strength of your belief system, figure out what you want to have happen, and then ask the following. How much time would it take for me to realistically believe I can make that happen? 20 years? Yes, I could. 10 years? Yes, sure. 5 years? Yes, I could. 2 years? I don't know, maybe. That's how strong the belief system is when you say maybe. If you changed, like say if I changed and I got a better belief system, then I would ask the question again. Could I do it in 2 years? And I said yes. 1 year? Yes. 6 months? Yes. 1 month? I don't know, maybe. Then That's the strength of that belief system. That's a guideline, not definitive, because time is not the only factor. Setting conditions can amplify a belief system. In other words, make it easier for you to build etheric belief pressure. Improving and adapting a stronger belief system adds to your ability to increase your etheric belief pressure. Setting and then triggering conditions multiplies your belief system's ability to increase etheric belief pressure. So it's a multiple, while like changing your belief system is like your starting points, kind of your starting point. And then the conditions are a way to multiply it, to build the pressure. Like think about how Jesus was doing his miracles, supposedly. What if his belief system was what? Love. It's true love. That was his belief system. It's hard to not believe that true love can't do anything. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'll just go to the next one. Next slide. All right, here's an example of like the fireball from a hand, like Merlin would, right? This is what I would have to do to believe I can do this. To build etheric belief pressure to a point that it creates a vacuum, and the path of least resistance is that I shoot a fireball from my hand. To 100% believe I have created an etheric belief pressure vacuum that collapses toward the path of least resistance, which in this case would be shooting a fireball from my hand. I would require the following conditions. 1, I can only shoot a fireball from my hand once. 2, I can only shoot the fireball from my hand during the culmination of a full moon. 3, I can only shoot the fireball to protect a loved one in a life or death situation. 4, I must train martial arts for at least 3,000 hours. But I mean, that's just shooting it once, right? And that'd be a pretty rare occurrence. That's why it would work, I think, because that would be so rare. Like my family's never going to be in a life and death situation during the culmination of a full moon, right? But that's how difficult it has to be. According to my current belief system, if I wanted to shoot from my hand all the time, I would have to do conditions can be anything, but this is what I would see as would make me worthy of it. I would have to live in the wild. This to shoot the fireballs from my hand whenever I wanted to. I would have to live in the wild for 1 year, starting from complete scratch. No clothes, no shoes, no tent, no knife, no lighter, no electronics, no contacts, no contact with anyone. Then I would have to, during that year, I would have to train martial arts for at least 2,000 hours, train in everything to do with aurora, chi, ki, that kind of stuff for at least 2,000 hours, train intent, controlling my intent and seeing the intent in other beings for 2,000 hours. I would have to eat a wolf's heart raw during the culmination of a full moon, eat an eagle's eyes raw during high noon on the spring equinox or fall equinox, create a steel knife, had to smelt iron, and then make a knife, basically. Track the position of the stars every night in a notebook, unless it's cloudy, I guess. And stare at the sun during high noon while in gratitude every single day. Then, after I did that 1 year, all I would have to do to maintain the ability to shoot fireballs was I would need to go and spend at least one night a week in the wild until the day I die. That's what I would. If I did that, I think I would 100% believe I could shoot a fireball from my hand. I'm probably not gonna do that. Because that's the one way I think I would be able to build up enough etheric belief pressure, according to my current belief systems, my starting points or whatever, and to create a vacuum that collapses toward the path of least resistance. In this case, would be shooting fireballs from my hand. The conditions can be anything. Now here's the tricky part of the whole thing. The tricky part about all this is building etheric belief pressure with conditions. Is that once you know that you can consciously set the conditions, it simultaneously becomes significantly harder to 100% believe in them. You know what I mean? Like take the placebo example. If the patient knew they were getting a placebo and not the experimental drug they thought they were getting, would they have still cured themselves? No, probably not, right? Because they wouldn't have had nearly the same amount of etheric belief pressure buildup, right? And they're unconscious. I mean, they don't even know. They're not even setting the conditions. They just got lied to, basically. And that's how strong their belief pressure was. So that when you consciously know, it's a lot different. It's like it's kind of like writing a book compared to reading a book. Like when you set the conditions, you're the author of the magic or whatever. And if you're reading a book, then you're not setting conditions. You're just following the script, or reading the script or whatever. But yeah, that's I think that's the magic system of the realm. And I think there's way other ways this can work. A bunch of other ways this can work. The law of one with the vacuums is a way to harness unlimited energy sources. There's patents on it. The Thomas Bearden, his whole book, Energy from the Vacuum, he's talking about the law of one. I mean, he gets really into like the physics of it, and I think that shit's too complex, but unnecessarily complex. But he was right. Thomas Bearden is right. Colonel Thomas Bearden. There's John Keeley. He was doing it. He was making machines that could do this, that were like unlimited energy machines. I already talked about him a bunch of times. But the magic part, like the part where we actually do magic, I think that has to do with belief pressure, building a etheric belief pressure to a certain threshold. But I don't think this is the same thing as miracles, but it might be. I don't think it is, though. I think miracles and like telekinesis and stuff is different, but I don't know. I'm starting to think they're the same. If I rewatch the people that I think can do telekinesis or levitation, like Ernst Wieder and or Dale Pond bending the spoon, or what's his name, Grandmaster Wolf, they all, except for Dale Pond, they all had conditions they needed to set. Like Grandmaster Wolf, his condition when he had to go live with monks for years to do that kind of stuff. And the condition for Ernst Wieder was he explains it. It's like, I had to get physically fit for a year, and I practiced it every day for like a couple hours. Like, those are conditions that he was setting, basically. So it could just be a conditional belief magic thing. Miracles. I don't like, same with like healing, but I don't know. Like, if Jesus's belief system was true love, that would be the easiest thing to do, would be to heal people for that belief system. So I don't know if miracles and magic are the same thing, and if this is the mechanism for miracles, but I'm positive it's the mechanism for magic, which is what I just explained. You can do anything. All right, and I guess hope you enjoyed the video.